Hello and welcome to Dice Pencil and Paper. Lately I've been producing zines for some of my games. People seem to like these zines. They like the design and how they look and layout and whatnot. So I thought it would be cool to share with you how I make these zines, because I don't use any fancy software for this. I use Google Docs for it. So this is going to be a simple video on how to set up your document so you can create your own zines or zines, and also not only the creation of Google Docs, but also how to print them in the correct format using Adobe Acrobat. So let's get started right off the bat. So right now I have loaded here one of my latest pieces, which is The Loss of Gwenhair, which is an adventure for 52 Fates. You got your headers here, you got your two columns, you got a footer. To set the document size, you go to File and then click Page Setup. You set the orientation, if you want to portrait, to keep this format that I have. The paper size, statement, which if you notice is 5.5 inches by 8.5 inches. So that's basically a letter size paper folded in half. So select the statement size, page color leave it as white, and then the margins, set them top and bottom at 0.5 inches, half an inch, and left and right to 0.25 inches, or a quarter of an inch. If you want to have two columns like I have in my zines, then you have to go to Format, Columns, and then you see that I already have two columns selected here, but you go to More Options, select here the number of columns that you want, in my case 2, and the spacing between the columns. Set it to 0.25 or a quarter of an inch. Optionally, and something I like because it visually gives more definition between columns, you can check this here. It'll put a line between the columns automatically. The next step would be to set up our header and footer. I like how it looks to have like a defined header to the document. It makes it look more more professional. So to do that, we're gonna go to Format, Headers and Footers. We set up the header to have 1/4 of an inch or 0.25 inches from top, and the footer 0.25 inches from the bottom. And this is important, different first page. This allows you to have this header here while you have the different header down here. So after that, it's as easy as going into the, and you can see that you get the option here for the different first page, and you get, I mean, there's some options here and whatnot that you can play with. But now I can type here my text and I can edit that, use different fonts, whatever I want to do, include some graphics like I did here. So for the second page onward, you can put whatever you want to put. In my case, I like putting the title of the zine, and same thing goes for the footer. However, in my case, I don't have a different footer per se in my document. An easy way to do it would be to set up your footer here and then go to the first page and just paste whatever you did on the other footers, and it'll all line up perfectly with no issues. That will give you this look where you have a distinct header with a nice title. You can even use color and whatever you want, and the rest of the document following a different format. Now let's talk about font uses. Right now I'm using Source Serif Pro, which has become one of my favorite fonts because it's very readable, very nice to look at. It looks good on screen and it looks good printed, which is even more important. I'm using right now Source Serif Pro at 8 points, and the spacing I'm using inside the paragraphs, I have a line spacing of 1, so single spacing. And to me, it looks really clear and sharp, and I have printed copies of the game and it looks really good. Your headers, you know, heading 1, heading 2, and so forth, try to keep them bigger, you know, make them bigger and bold and whatnot so they pop out, but don't make them too big. As you can see, I barely leave any space between headers and content. In this case, heading 1 is 16 points, heading 2 is 12 points, and header 3 is 9 points. And I think it gives it a nice look. Everything looks balanced and readable and clear, and even though it prints in a relatively small size. I learned about this font through the Practical Typography website. There's a link in the description for that website, which has a lot of solid information about how to design and work with documents. What remains might be the hardest part, which is fitting the contents to your document. And ideally you either want to stop at 4 pages, or you want to make them multiples of 4, in case you want something that you're going to be stapling together and for distribution or for printing. That's something that I cannot provide a concise way to set up, because honestly it depends on what you're putting in the document. But I sort of gauge it as I type, and I usually err on the side of putting little information, and then if I end up with more space available, then I put in more information and fill it in until I reach basically the end of the 4th page, and that makes everything look nice. Another thing I do is that, for example, this header that ended up in the top of the page by the natural flow of the document, I removed the space before the paragraph, or that type of paragraph, because that otherwise I would have like a space here before it, so it didn't make the best use of the space. So you gotta be aware of things like that. Same deal with this header. I removed the space before it, and so that everything lines up all the way to the top. Basically, that's my guideline when I'm putting all these things together. This header, the same thing, make sure it goes all the way to the top. So if you have a header that starts a column, remove the spaces before it, and you have a little bit more space for your content. That covers creating the document. The final step would be setting up for printing. And for that, we move to Adobe Acrobat. We go to Print. And here, make sure to select Booklet. And you can see here how it formats the document just the way you want it. There's page 4, which is going to be at the end, page 1, and the pages 2 and 3. So you print it in booklet format, binding to the left, both sides, portrait, and that'll give you a very nice booklet type document that you can then just fold in half after you print it, and you get your nice compact zine for your game. So that's it. That's basically what you need to do. If you have any questions about this, you can hit me up on Twitter, Dice Pencil Paper, comment on the video below. And I mean, if I can find a way to help you, or any ideas that you have, things that you have discovered from Google Docs that maybe I have missed some features, let me know about them, please. I'm really open to making this kind of thing accessible. I think the zine format has a lot of merit because it allows for relatively cheap distribution of game material. So anything that can make this easier for people to produce and get in the hands of other people, it's much appreciated, and it's something I look forward to seeing. If you like the video, you like content like this, hit the like button and feel free to subscribe to the channel. I really appreciate that. And until next time, keep those D20s rolling.